Chapter 5, Mishnah 2. Rabbi Yossi says 6 other matters are to be counted among the disputes in which the more lenient rulings are from Beis Shammai and the stricter rulings are from Beis Hillel. Under biblical law, the prohibition against having milk and meat together applies only to the milk and meat of kosher domestic animals, cattle, sheep, and goats. Having poultry with dairy is only rabbinically prohibited. The first dispute, which appears in Chulin 8:1, concerns the extent of the decree against mixing poultry with dairy. Poultry may be placed on the same table with cheese or other dairy products, but it may not be eaten with cheese, even if the two were not cooked together, according to the words of Beis Shammai. But Beis Hillel say poultry may not be placed on the table with cheese, because of the concern that this may lead to mixing animal meat with dairy products, and it certainly may not be eaten with cheese. The second dispute concerns the laws of terumah. The terumah that is separated on behalf of a crop must be the same kind as the crop itself. One cannot, for example, set aside wheat as terumah for barley. See Terumos 2:4. The dispute mentioned here centers on whether processed and unprocessed forms of a single variety of produce are considered of the same kind. We may separate olives as terumah for olive oil and grapes as terumah for wine, since olives and olive oil are from the same kind of produce, as are grapes and wine. This is the law according to the words of Beis Shammai. But Beis Hillel say we may not separate olives as terumah for olive oil or grapes for wine, since unprocessed produce may not be separated for processed produce, or vice versa. The third dispute concerns the biblical prohibition against planting grain or greens near a grapevine, Deuteronomy 22:9. If grain is planted too close to a grapevine, both the grain and the grapevine become forbidden as kilayim and must be burned. If the grapevine was part of a vineyard, that grapevine, together with the vineyard's worth of vines next to it, become forbidden. How many is this? This is the subject of the next dispute. If someone plants grain within 4 amos of a vineyard consisting of 2 or more rows of vines, Beis Shammai say he has condemned, i.e. prohibited, 1 row of vines opposite the grain, because a single row of vines is considered a vineyard. But Beis Hillel say he has condemned 2 rows of the vineyard opposite the grain, because the minimum size of a vineyard is 2 rows. The Torah requires us to separate a portion of every dough or bread and give it to the Kohen. This portion, known as challah, is holy and may be eaten only by Kohanim. Numbers 15:19. This fourth dispute centers on whether the mitzvah applies to a certain type of dough. A me'isa, a type of dough made by adding flour to boiling water and cooking it until it thickens, after which it is baked in an oven. Beis Shammai exempted from challah because it was cooked before it was baked, and, in their opinion, once something is cooked, baking it afterwards does not make it bread. But Beis Hillel require that challah be separated from it. They maintain that as long as it is baked afterwards, it is considered bread. The fifth dispute concerns the laws of a mikveh. This dispute appears in Mikvos 5:6. We may immerse utensils in a stream of rainwater running down a mountain slope, as long as there are 40 sa'ah of water from the top to the bottom of the stream, according to the words of Beis Shammai. But Beis Hillel say we may not immerse utensils in the stream, since 40 sa'ah are not collected in one place. Every Jewish person who is tahor is obligated to take part in a Pesach offering. This offering is slaughtered in the temple on the afternoon of Erev Pesach, and its meat is eaten that evening at the Seder. A convert to Judaism is also obligated to take part in a Pesach offering. This sixth dispute, which appears in Pesachim 8:8, concerns a convert's fitness to participate in a Pesach offering immediately after his conversion. If a convert to Judaism converted on Erev Pesach, that is, he was circumcised for the purpose of conversion on that day, Beis Shammai say he immerses himself in a mikveh on that day to complete the conversion process, and he may eat his Pesach offering that night. But Beis Hillel say a convert who circumcises himself to separate from the foreskin is like someone who separates from the grave. Just as someone who separates from the grave, i.e. who becomes tameh from a human corpse, cannot eat from an offering until he purifies himself from his tumah by being sprinkled with mei chatas water on the 3rd and 7th days of his tumah, so too the rabbis decreed that a convert may not eat from an offering until he goes through the 7-day purification process after completing his conversion. Therefore, we do not allow him to eat from a Pesach offering even if he completes his conversion on Erev Pesach.